colors creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire.
Welcome to the first episode of Burning Questions, the show where we dive deep into VTuber lore. And today, our first guest ever is Zenno Osama. Zenno,
Hmm,
welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to be back. Crazy?
Well, it's always lovely. It's always lovely to be working with you in anything really. From Wife's Weekly to now, we have this.
This is what
So,
you call a podcast, yes?
yes, it's definitely a podcast. So, would you like to tell everybody something about yourself?
Certainly. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Zenno. I am your local dragon wolf deity from another world. There are some customs that I'm still getting used to upon this dimension and plane, very different from the one that I came to. But I'm always happy to be here and grant your wishes and protect your dream.
Ah, yes, you stream on Twitch too, right?
Yes, I'm primarily an artist.
Ah, yes. What kind of stuff have you been doing lately? If you want like some people to know to promote, of course.
I help actually inspire people. As of late, I am getting ready to be doing some digital art lessons to help instruct people and give some advice and guidance from my 12 years of artistic experience within the digital medium. Something nice that I
Ah,
want to do.
okay, I see, I see. Well, if you without further ado, we're gonna start with the 10
Hmm,
burning questions that people don't think about when discussing lore, specifically your lore. So, starting
Ah,
off, since both your halves of your personality are predators, specifically the dragon and the wolf, do you ever feel the primal urge to hunt out in the woods or hunt in the skies or whatever a wolf and a dragon traditionally do?
perhaps not in the traditional sense, but there is a voracious appetite that I do have. Um, Lunchtime can be a bit embarrassing considering I eat actually quite a bit.
I see.
Hmm.
Can you give an example of things you eat, or maybe how much you eat, if that doesn't be a bit too
Well,
much?
mm, well, I last month I did eat about 40 bowls of ramen. I'm addicted to it, unfortunately.
This is one day, right? It isn't like all at once, or is
I
it?
had it. Yes, it was one day, but thankfully, being part dragon, I can have huge meals like that and not go for quite some time between them.
Oh, I see. So you have like
Hmm.
some kind of like buffer in between them?
Hmm. Basically, my type of dragon kind of functions more like a serpent. It's an Eastern based dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the serpentine reptilian nature of that must have translated to me somehow in how my biology functions. So I can go with large periods between meals and have a digestive period.
Okay, I see. I see. So like in terms of human biology, what you're having is basically a mukbang, right?
More or less.
Okay. Well, on the bright side, at least you are physically capable of doing that. That isn't something that people should be doing every day. Like
And
humans, I mean
absolutely
regular
not.
humans, obviously.
Regular mortals, I would not advise to do that at all. It would be very disadvantageous for your inside to suddenly become literally your outside. It would definitely not be beneficial, and quite frankly, I believe that would be very fatal. Be careful and take care of yourself.
Well, knowing how some people who are watching this probably know the Japan's like food challenges, we can probably say that it's not very
Definitely
mm,
not healthy, that's for certain.
yeah, it's not healthy. Those people are trained to do this and they do have their ways of like getting around eating so much food.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. But also, they don't do it regularly. They
Yeah,
maintain.
they take
They do
breaks.
exactly. I would never recommend at all eating that much in a regular sitting at all. No, please once again take care of yourselves. Otherwise, I will scold you, and it's not in the pleasant way that you're thinking.
That's true.
To
That's
cover
true.
my base, I have to cover my bases. I have quite a few more, shall we say, interesting followers on this world than I did back in my old world.
Oh well.
It's very bizarre. Some people like being scolded. It's quite bizarre.
Well, that is a thing, the kink that some people do have. Strangely enough.
Mm. Humans are quite bizarre creatures. I do
Fol-
love them, as all gods do, but it is concern.
I suppose that is right. So, next question. Being a dragon wolf hybrid, you also have a bestial form, of course, right?
I do indeed. Although
Oh,
becoming to this world, this power of mine to transform freely, unfortunately has diminished. Perhaps eventually I will regain it, but it is a long and slow process to regaining my former power.
okay, I see, I see. Well, since you have a bestial form, I have to ask, has any of your
Hmm.
followers ridden you? On your back, of course. I don't mean it in the
Oh
other
my!
way.
No, 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 that would be considered sacrilege. Let me put it this way. As a god, it is improper at all to be considered one's mount. Even for war times, the greatest honor and privilege you could get from being, well, the steed, is none at all. Now, I'm not a beast of burden, but I have carried someone in. I am a large entity in my draconic hybrid form. My
Yes.
beast form is known as a great guardian, much like how the guardian lions, your world, actually are depicted.
Oh, okay, I see. Perhaps there are some, how should I say this? Some types of specific roles that those guardians have played, but they're not something that you would do like on a regular basis, obviously, since you are
Absolutely not.
a goddess.
Mm. Yes. And even at that, my place is not on the battlefield. I've never been to a battlefield except for maybe a true handful of occasions. My place is more so for those who are suffering from injury, wishes of
Ah.
wellness and healing. I grant all wishes, after all, not just desires of, well, basic needs and wants that humans might have had, be it material or perhaps mental of sorts. I also provide physical healing and etc. Basically, should the individual wish for the wellness of another, be it health or mental health, or even just a smile, I can
Mm-hmm.
grant. It is some within reasons, though. I only offer 3 wishes per individual per visit. Any
Per
more is kind of
visit.
pushing it. Any more is kind of pushing it. Yeah, it
Okay,
is, and
so
also there are some limitations as well to that.
okay, that makes sense. So, mm, what if let's say, what if a person were to, well, wish that they wanted to ride you? Would you do something like that?
That is actually pushing it. It's very much pushing. I would not be very pleased, let's put it that way.
Hopefully,
Unless,
this
of
is
course, the
a
only exception I make is children. That is the
fair
only
enough. Fair enough, fair enough. So perhaps some of the your followers who are watching right now should probably heed these words and
exception.
not try to push it in a certain way.
Push your luck. Don't push your luck. I can be a very vengeful goddess if you push me too far.
Okay then, well, moving on. Perhaps okay, on to the next question. On your appearance on Waifu's Weekly during the hybrid episode, we discussed head pats. As part wolf, Do you find this action among other pleasurable things, such well from head pats, belly rubs, neck scritches, nape cuddles, tail strokes, back massages, and so on? Do you find any of these pleasurable in such a way that you would actually ask it of a certain follower of yours, perhaps?
If you're asking if I have favorites in regards to who does the best technique for said pats and scritches, yes, I do have some favorites. It's a thing that I can't really stop. Really, they're very nice. It's just a nice feeling. Any type of gratification that my followers might have received from that should be purely based off of them being happy to see me smile.
It
Anything
shouldn't
else
be
is a bit
of
weird.
other, yes, exactly. It has to be more on trying to, well, okay, that's it's this is purely in the most worship way, but I suppose it's the way to give you a sort of pleasure, right?
It is not that type of pleasure, if that's what you're
Yes,
implying.
not the other term, but a way of
Yes.
giving you a type of entertainment, perhaps.
Yes.
Ah, I see. That's good. Which of these would you say is your favorite? Would it be the tail strokes, the head pats, or the classic belly rubs, considering that you are part wolf after all?
I like the head pats most because, well, I like my ears scratched.
Ah, yes, the classic ear scritches. Perhaps that is something some of your followers may know about. Perhaps one of
Hmm.
your favorite followers
Jay
is on here.
Kornacki especially is the one who's the most guilty for it. But I really complain too much. Can't really complain too much. It does. Speak of the devil.
He is here though, so he should
Mm-hmm.
probably heed these earlier words though about, well, you know what.
Mm.
On the other side of the coin, would do you give these to your followers perhaps, like giving them head pats, belly rubs, and such?
I give
Do you,
them head pats as well because head pats are just nice.
perhaps they may even wish for it at some points, of course.
I mean, it's a very odd thing to waste a wish on when I would give it for free.
That's fair, but you know, you can never be too sure with some gods. Perhaps they wish to be more certain with their reward or
Hmm.
desire.
Well, like I said, it is a very odd thing to waste a wish on, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be granted.
Well, if the followers can hear that, you know what to do this time. Next time you approach your goddess and ask for a wish.
Hmm.
Okay, moving on to the fourth question. Being a god of wishes, dreams, minor chaos, and being roughly 300 years old, young, of course, 300 years
Naturally.
young, are there any
Mm-hmm.
wishes granted between now and the 1700s that may have been some that
Hmm.
people may know about, something that might have turned history, let's say? Perhaps a wish that a small, quote unquote, small Frenchman made a wish to conquer the French kingdom, or something else entirely. Perhaps you might have granted a wish that turned the course of history. Would
Not in
you
this world.
share them?
Not in this world. I know for a fact I haven't had any influence upon this domain. But within my own world, I might have accidentally caused a revolution. I.
Would you share some details on what might have happened? Because I'm assuming that your world doesn't have access to this internet, right?
Not. I came here via very unusual means. There was a random person who appeared at my shrine after it had been cut off from my original world. And next thing I know, after a misadventure, we ended up here. But in my original world, there was a king from a small nation who asked a great wish from me. He asked for power and a magic blade. In doing so, he turned history and conquered half of the known world. It was possibly my biggest mistake, and something I
Ah,
regret. Many people
I
die.
hmm, I see. So this is probably what made you regulate your wishes more, as to not just grant it to just anyone, I suppose.
I I do grant wishes to anyone who asks, but I do now regulate what types of wishes and how many, and what can be provided. I no longer assist in political matters or turning the side of conflict. I only now ease the wounded and provide happiness when there is none. I've learned from my mistakes. It was a hard thing because as a god with such a direct influence with humanity, one must realize and learn your weight consequences can affect everything, for better or terribly worse.
I
It
see.
was it was a very long time when I was just starting with my purpose in the
I see, I see. Well, considering that they're actually, or as people know, I am from the fire world. I do my best to stay out of conflict due to the fire world being also known by its other name, which is hell. Perhaps there is a certain attraction to violence which my world is known for, but considering that
Mm,
I am living in a more progressive time, we get to have a better view of how we do things. But I understand what you're talking about when it came to conflict, because conflict has arisen in my world, which has caused it to be known as hell to the humans. But this is not truly the case for every part of this world, as there is small pockets of there are pockets of fire people, or elementals who do view violence as not necessarily abhorrent, but something that should be the last resort. And
uh,
we, due to this world being more based on technology, we no longer have plenty of our deities, unlike your world currently, which
mm,
has you, of course. But
uh,
perhaps this is something that we have to work on in our worlds, and try to regulate on who can have what kind of power over the people. But I suppose that considering on how my world isn't doing so well, this is just as far as we can take it. But your world
mm.
still has you, which has not abandoned it. My gods have abandoned my world, but we still
My
try to.
world no longer has me either.
Oh, that's right. You have moved on, right? To a
I've
well,
moved
to
here, upon this domain. My world no longer
yes.
needs God. It has industrialized much like this world has. It's
Hmm.
just interesting enough, this world, regardless of how far it's advanced and evolved, still finds the need for supernatural entities and gods. There are some that still actually thrive here, which is a bit peculiar, but a welcome one. A welcome peculiarity that allows me to sustain myself. It might be unknown, but I was destined to disappear at a certain time. My time span and place upon this world, the fabric of reality itself, if you wish to call it, was destined to be limited from the beginning. I understand this, but I rejected it all the same.
I see.
Mm,
There are plenty of fellow gods on this dimension, in on the Terran dimension. Perhaps they have done something similar to the reason why they have left their homeworlds. Something that they've done that they no longer need. Well, what you have said is similar to how my world has progressed. We had gods, but they left for whatever reason. The gods of hell have left and perhaps traveled to other dimensions, perhaps a Terra, but it is difficult to say for sure.
mm. It seems we have both been displaced to an interesting realm, then, haven't we?
Perhaps yes, but I've never been one for religion myself. I
Hmm.
rely more on technology because I view technology as being more reliable, as there are some gods who are more spiteful, other gods
Hmm.
who don't grant the wishes we want, but the wishes they think we should receive, if you get what I mean. Something done out of
Yes, I
spite.
see. Yes. And they say sometimes a blessing is a curse in disguise. I've heard
Exactly.
of the stories of this world's Greek pantheon. I see is very notorious story of that, with a double-ended serpentine moral at the end. A double-edged blade where a beneficial boon will be one's undoing, depending on how it is wielded and used. Quite tragic.
Considering that I too am very aware of many of the how should I say, stories of the Terran world, seeing much of their cultures develop around it through history. Of course, I personally have not experienced it since I am not as old as other elementals, but I do understand what you mean with the um cultures basic developing around their religions, of course.
Yes, it's quite
On
interesting.
Yes, well, plenty we've heard plenty from the Greeks, the Greek pantheon, the Norse pantheon, even
Yes.
some from the more obscure ones, but it is a bit unsure as I am not that no, I do not know much about those
When I came to this
cultures.
world, When I came to this world, my companion who got me stuck here provided me with something called the internet, and
Ah,
I did quite a bit of research on the inhabitants of this world, what they valued, what things they found interesting, culture, philosophy, and their religious preferences. I wanted to know if there were other gods like myself upon this place. While famed, there might be around still, I'm not sure. I'm a bit still out of reach. I'm not fully upon this world yet, just outside it. But it is so close, isn't it? So far. But
being
it is something that I found very interesting about just how the inhabitants themselves have developed so uniquely. There are some uniform ideas that you will find in every culture and civilization.
true. I completely agree. I've seen plenty of things that seem almost like echoes between between the universe I'm currently in and the Terran universe. I've seen much similarities from violence, technology, but altogether they are just different peoples that believe in different things, but there are just some things that unify them all, surprisingly enough.
I see.
They share
Yeah,
many qualities, of course.
very interesting, to say the least.
I this place is probably the reason why most people, well, I've discussed with many other worlders, if I should say so, people that aren't from the Terran dimension but currently reside in the Terran dimension, and they agree that 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 universe, that dimension, is rather unique compared to all of plenty of our home dimensions, which is
Yes.
something we should probably appreciate more, considering how many of us, well, many of men
Hmm.
I've met plenty of otherworlders who wish to transfer back to their home universes, but I personally wish to leave mine and go to this universe. Perhaps you
Hmm.
view the same way? Do you believe that this universe might be of need of your assistance, if I should say
I
so?
do believe. Well, I haven't disappeared since I first arrived here, so obviously is some people who do desire and need me in some regard. The way my world functions with deities is that if there is somebody who believes in you and needs you, you shall be able to be sustained by the universe itself. My particular case was entirely reliant on people needing something else or an entity to grant wishes that were at the current time for them impossible to accomplish themselves. That is also why my world ended up, not needing me after a while. Humanity had finally developed enough to grant the majority of their wishes themselves, their desires, if they were determined enough. And so I was destined to fade out of existence. But, as I said before, upon coming here, there are some people who very clearly still desire and need somebody to help grant, or at the very least, give them a very much needed nudge to accomplish their own wishes and goals and ideas.
I see. Um, there are plenty of humans that would rather take what they can instead of asking it from a god. And as of course, as beings, we have to respect that because rising to the occasion and doing what you can to take what you want is an admirable trait that we have to respect, such as, well, what I have been doing my best to collect data from different universes and do it in a way that can help give the most accurate representation of what can be viewed from a certain person, which is why I've asked you here. People want to know more about the deity they worship. People want to know what makes what makes you different from, let's say, a genie from European cultures, wherein the genie that they have usually comes with tricks up their sleeve, wishes that would be granted, but not in a way that
Monkey
you'd think they
paw
would.
style, I see. Uh,
Exactly.
they
Or
worry. Well, I completely understand, yes.
like
Hmm.
wishing upon a star. There are some people that don't want to work with that, like me. But there are times where we do have to use some divine gifts to survive. I have my own fire magic mixed with my technology, so I don't 100% rely on technology, but surely there are some people that 100% rely only on technology and some people that only rely on the gods. But I don't think either is 100% correct. They should try to balance it out because not everything can be solved from experience. Not everything can be solved with just using divine
Well,
intervention or using technology.
yes, I see. Well, you really can't give that much of a guarantee. It depends on the individual at the end of the day, I believe, is the best way to put it. And, well, hmm, that's a very difficult question to ask and answer. I think at the end of it, it should just depend on the person rather than the God giving intervention. What is it that the
Exactly.
person desires? And what is it that they are having struggles with? What do they need assistance with, and why should I step in? It's not like I'm just handing out wishes to anybody who jumps to the shrine. While that is a possibility, I usually do prefer contact these days as to why. And if I can provide assistance otherwise, that is something I usually will try to do nowadays more so first. Sometimes you don't need a wish, you just need a little bit of additional encouragement.
Exactly. Um, I've as I have you do have access to the media of this universe, right?
Yes,
One of my favorite medias that I've seen for a while that I believe shows the best representation, ironically, shows the best representation for a deity, I believe would be the movie Even Almighty. If you're aware of that comedy movie that was popular roughly less than a decade ago.
actually, I haven't heard of that one. Hmm.
Ah, okay, very well. I
It
don't
sounds
want to give a,
interesting though.
I don't want to give a full rundown of the movie, but one of the quotes from the movie was God. Well, I'm paraphrasing here, but g- um, God does not grant wishes. If somebody wants something, God gives the opportunity. So if a baseball player wants to succeed in life, God doesn't grant them the wish to succeed. God grants them the opportunity to succeed. Therefore,
Hmm.
that's generally how I view humanity should, well, not just humanity, but all beings should view gods such as yourself, wherein we do not we do not distinctly always wish for things to happen, but we wish for the opportunity for something. For example, let's say a person wishes to be smart, wishes to be better at math like a student, they should not be given granted that as a wish immediately. They should be granted the opportunity to rise to the occasion and learn for themselves and become better.
Yes. Or perhaps if they are still struggling even with the opportunity, provide them a means to improve themselves so that they can make success themselves by,
That is true.
enhancing
Yes.
or perhaps revealing to them hidden talents that they already have. Have you heard of the fable of you having already had that skill but not the confidence to use it because you don't believe you have it to begin with? Sometimes you need a placebo to give you the little additional push needed.
I believe so because is that not a type of how should I say trope that occurs in many of this world's um
Media,
mythologies
yeah.
or
There's
stories.
quite a
We
lot of fables and mythology that has that. It's quite interesting, but it is effective because it works.
it does encourage this world's people to rise to the occasion. We've seen heroes rise from the ashes because of such things. People don't
Yes.
believe that they can. Let's say, okay, let's give a general example. We've seen people. One of the people I've seen are I personally admire is someone like Iron Mouse, who is a VTuber such as you and I, who started off as well what we're doing right now. Started off as individuals, but she rose to the occasion to not only surpass her otherworldly um otherworldly situations, but also ended up rising to the occasion to become probably the most well-known demon,
Mm,
essentially, of the modern age, being known
yes.
for her strength, for her fortitude to push through her issues and become,
Yes.
well, determined. Something that she didn't know that she could do 2 years ago, roughly.
Mm.
Yeah.
I find there's a lot of inspiration that we can find from our fellow VTuber peers. There are some entities that have taken up the medium just to better connect with humans and individuals like themselves. And I do find that whole, I think they call it networking aspect of it quite interesting and fascinating. I've had a lot more friends nowadays than I did back when I was on my old worlds because of it. And it's something that I do find that can assist with how we function as individuals and beings. Um, there's quite a lot of interesting things that occur in regards to that as well.
Yes, I completely agree. We have discussed more and more through our time here. We have discussed with more beings that we didn't think we would probably discuss with. I've met heroes, I've met dragons, I've met, well, a goddess like you. I've met a ton of different beings just by being in this world. Um, Funny enough, I've seen so much occur in the last, well, 6 months roughly. Then I've learned more about different cultures, and my time being here, seeing all these beings rise to the occasion, from people who are just humans that found a way to rise up and gain popularity on the internet, to, well, goddesses like you who has pretty much established their own cult now here. And
Cult? Oh
just
no, let me be clear. It's not a cult. It's not a cult. I assure you, it's not a cult.
okay, just to preface to the viewers, when I mean cult, I mean the generic term of cult, meaning a small religion, which is, I have to admit, is a very, very, okay, I'm gonna be blunt with this, stupid definition, because
It is
any
indeed
any
very,
religion
very.
any religion
Mm,
smaller than the quote unquote top dog religion is
eh.
called a cult just seems to be a very, very stupid
It's a
definition.
very. It seems like a misnomer in its own right, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Ah,
when
very
when
misleading.
Exactly. Especially
And also,
given that
cult tends to have a very negative connotation
negative.
as well.
Exactly. I find it. I find it
Is
very
a very small place. Let me put it this way. Maybe the best word is a spiritual community.
yeah, okay.
That, but
I
it
believe
sounds a
that's
little bit.
the
It's still a bit. It's a bit clunkier, but it is a bit better than just straight up saying cult.
I have to admit that is true, because this world and how they view things is very rigid, ironically speaking. But there are people who are more open-minded to the case, and hopefully
Mm,
the viewers and the several followers who do see this content do see that we are trying to be as open-minded as possible, which is why I started out this thing to show
yeah.
to show the different cultures and universes where the different VTubers may have arisen from.
Yes, yes, yes. It is also incredibly interesting that I've never actually really had somebody ask me these many questions about myself. The most is that people ask me who my parents were, but that's an awkward question because I don't have parents in the traditional sense. I am a deity that was born from the ether. Whatever parents I had are not exist, I think. And I don't really know, honestly. There's a large gap in my memory. You would have even most in my world remember the day they are born. I don't. It's very odd.
Coincidentally enough, that is actually the next question, which is, what is it like growing up essentially being a superpowered orphan? What was there someone to guide you, or did you learn how to become a dragon wolf deity by yourself, or did you discover these
Yeah,
things by yourself personally? That,
I
or
was
were
born.
you just grew did you just appear immediately like how you are right now, or did you grow up like baby Zeno, basically, is what we're asking.
Well, if you wanted to learn how I was when I was younger, you should have just that way, my dear. Um, but yes, when growing up, it was very difficult because, well, for starters, I didn't really have an instruction manual. I just remember popping into existence at one point and having one of my elder superior fellow gods on the pantheon turn to me and say, "Here's your purpose. You are to grant wishes of the mortals. You are to guard their dreams and ideals, and to ensure that they never lose the drive to exist, and everything else is kind of icing on the cake." I don't know what he meant by that until later, but basically that was more or less what he informed me to do, and so it was a lot of trial and error. My first century or so of a god was literally just figuring out the abilities aside from wish granting and everything else, and learning what I should be doing and what individuals I should be dealing with. Eventually, I did eventually get some priests and priestesses and monks and a few other scholars that ended up more or less congregating around me and making a shrine that I still exist in today. A place of worship, a place of ideals, but building everything from the beginning onward. After all, I was new to this world and nobody knew my name. It was just because I was a god that doesn't mean I had the right to be worshipped until if nobody knew my name, and it was a struggle. There's a whole initiation rite that gods have to go through in my world to be, well, worthy of staying around. And while I did know that my purpose was to be limited upon this planet, or upon the planet I was born on the world and dimension, well, if I didn't make a name for myself quickly, that time limit was going to be a lot shorter than initially allotted. The gods of my world function and exist upon devotion and belief. If there are nobody to believe in you, you're destined to disappear. It's
I
it's how we function everything about how we are. That's also what limits our powers.
I
It's
see.
quite a cruel system.
I see. That makes sense considering how um this is gonna sound a bit blunt, but I do believe that gods really are the product of the belief of mortals, if that makes sense.
Actually, that's exactly right. The universe itself does have a hand in it, but it's what the mortals desire and need that makes us. It's a necessity for us to exist. There must be a need that they need divinely governed or fulfilled over. The only gods that seem to be minorly exempt from this rule are gods that are natural forces, gods that govern over the elements that create this world or universe. Gods that are designed to rule and reign over mortals, however, are a particularly interesting case. Almost even in this world, culturally, they're designed to be cultural deities. They are entirely necessitated by the belief and need of humans to seek comfort in things that frighten them.
Yes, there are plenty of cases. We have seen we do know of plenty of deities that do reside in this universe that do such a case wherein they how should I say this? They are developed over time depending on the circumstance of the people or what's going on. One of the things I have learned from my time researching about certain cultures on Earth is the goddess Aphrodite of the Greek
Hmm.
pantheon. She is
Goddess
known
of
as
love.
the goddess of love, but she is also at times considered the type of motherly goddess, which
Hmm.
which is actually kind of unique because despite being a motherly goddess, she is also somewhat a goddess of war because as we know, well, okay, sorry, this is probably very hurtful, but mothers would care for the children the same way you would care for your followers, right?
Well, yes, actually. No, I
But
don't see how that's hurtful. It's true.
yes, no, I was about to say something about your parents, but uh
I didn't have any, so it's not really that
yeah,
problematic.
that's fair. But
I mean,
consider
being an orphan isn't actually that sad as you.
I suppose it makes sense. There are just some things that over you have and you don't have, and that's just how life works. But going back,
Hmm.
the the people have changed the way that Aphrodite has worked over time. She actually once first she at a certain point did also have warlike qualities because a mother's love is probably the most one of the more terrifying things in the universe as
Oh, yeah.
they as we have seen that they would stop at nothing to protect their children, be it
Yep.
be it positively affecting the children or negatively affecting the children. They would do what they can to protect their children, which is what mothers should do, of course.
I mean, that is how I more or less view my devotees. They are an extension of me. They are, in a sense, children that I take care of and guard and make sure that they are able to grow up strong. I am a wish granter, but I also protect their dreams. It is not
Yeah,
just the dreams that they have at the waking hours of the evening, it is also their ideals, their desires to be something more, want things that they idealize. If they wish to be greater than they currently are, the aspirations to be better individuals, I guard those desires to ensure that they never lose that, the drive and will to be alive. It is a wonderful responsibility, although it can be quite challenging sometimes. There have been
yes,
some particular
definitely.
cases. Mhm.
But that is
In
just
my world
how.
in my world, I was also known as a god of muses because I nurtured those who are particularly creative.
Oh, okay, I see. But that makes plenty of sense considering that there are cases wherein muses do wish to have more skill to become well better muses, and perhaps they might
Mhm.
have prayed to you to become better
Well,
versions of who they are. But only they can grant that wish, I suppose.
well, yes, because I wasn't about to step into their lane. A muse's purpose is to help inspire and nurture the creativity of mortals, and that seems to be too specific a domain for me. However, I'm not against assisting them in their endeavors to help others. I more or less kind of became a bit of an icon amongst them. In my old world, I do wonder how some of them are doing.
Ah, yeah, true. Perhaps some of them aren't particularly worshiping you, but they do still view you as an icon of blessing to art. Like
So,
how
a bit of
many.
a senpai, perhaps. Is that the word?
Ah, yes. Yeah, exactly. Somebody that they look up to, wishing that they could be like you. Perhaps
Oh,
there.
well,
Well, that is obviously a
certainly.
reason why they
I
worship you. Yeah.
I mean, I am particular. It might be a bit odd, but even for a god myself, I'm particularly humble and wouldn't necessarily. I would wonder if a muse would be a worshipper of mine. I'm not sure I would be really worthy of that, but it's flattering to think about. I assume.
That is true. There are. I kind of understand where you're coming from because we don't. Plenty of people, beings, don't really see themselves as worthy of worthy of some things. As the reason why imposter syndrome is a rampant issue that occurs in, well, most media creators, including VTubers. Some people don't think they deserve what they've gotten in terms of a positive light. Some people don't believe they deserve their followers. Some people don't
Yeah.
think they deserve the things that they've gotten out of other people, gifts, for example. There are plenty of people who I try to befriend and try to tell them that they are enough, but they still don't believe that they are worthy of such things. I myself am a victim of this, not of the I don't deserve something, but of the opposite end, wherein somebody told me that they don't deserve some positive things, and I do what I can to help affirm them, but sadly the world just affects people in mysterious ways. As
Yes,
such,
and not always
people
the best of ways.
yeah, as such people just have to learn that they are worthy of everything positive that occurs to them, despite what that little voice in their head thinks of them, but they are worthy.
Yes. Yes. Do you happen to have any more questions?
Oh, yes, of course. We can move on to the sixth question, which is, as a deity, do you have a certain champion? Someone who embodies many of what you as a deity represent, or perhaps a person that has won your favor, or you have granted a blessing towards in terms of being not necessarily your favorite, but somebody who you think has risen above the rest.
I do believe I might have had one a long time ago, but I'm not sure if he's still around. He was immortal after. And, well, unlike most gods, I don't provide immortality with my champion heraldry. But that's quite alright. He was a wonderful young soul, and his ideal was to be the guardian of his entire hometown.
I see,
He
I see.
made, it's been such a long time, it's quite embarrassing that I definitely forgot his name, but I will never forget how sweet his face. He was a very good person.
Yeah, that's good to hear because I do know that there are champions of people that are champions of gods, I mean, that are, well, that are very respected, but sometimes are forgotten because a certain, let's say, deity, for example, in Greek mythology, do has I'm sorry, they have plenty of champions that they tend to overshadow each other in some aspects. Some people would, um, for example, let's go with somebody like Heracles, who was meant
Mm?
to be the champion, who was meant to be a champion who under Ares, but they are also being overshadowed by many other heroes of that pantheon who are other champions of Ares, champions of Athena, champions of Zeus. They all overshadow each other in such a way that it, I believe, becomes more detrimental to what they really represent, because these beings they change their champions like every what, every couple decades. I find it rather sad that they don't have one champion who truly represents the being. But I am glad that to hear that you do have a champion that you believe is somebody you admire, even many centuries after the fact that they've been granted the champion name.
Yes. Um, oh, that's an interesting thing. Sorry, I just got a bit of a small thing. No way. Um,
It's all right. But
but
what has this champion done to win your favor? Perhaps
well,
have they been great artists, or were they a type of wish granter also in a certain case?
well, I guess you could call him a wish granter. He wished and did his best, rather, to, without any magic, provide the kind of wishes individuals in his community desired. He was just a very helpful person. He carried the luggage and heavy weights of people crossing streets and helped merchants at their stalls. He provided security when people needed it. He was a great warrior and protected their community from harm and dangers, and he was a bit of a superman, as you call it. He did
Ah,
everything possible without any magic whatsoever, and it caught my attention. I decided to reward him for his effort because, well, it's quite interesting to see what a motivated mortal can do when inspired to do their very best, and I wanted to assist him in his method of doing so.
I suppose that is what many mortals should aspire to do. I understand why this person is your champion, despite it being centuries after the fact that they were granted this championship. They do seem to be they should be an icon of not of worship, but an idol wherein people should aspire to be like, right?
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I do agree. Yes.
Because yes, because they are the champion. They do serve the fact of being a sorry, excuse me.
Oh, no worries.
Oh, sorry. Um, they do seem to be a icon of an icon wherein people should aspire to be if in case of worship you. So perhaps your followers should probably heed these words and know that there is somebody that they should strive to be, and that person is your champion, of course. Wherein they should strive to be helpful towards each other, strive to aid others, and don't only wish for divine intervention to become greater, I suppose.
Yes. They did it purely out of the goodness of their hearts of what they wished to do, and to better their community and the individuals they desired to help. There was no self gain here, it was purely because they desired to. And that was an admirable trait, something that I took great interest in. It was something that was not very often seen upon my world, and it seems this world also sometimes have a bit of a issue with that,
Yes, there is definitely a problem with how people wish to be rewarded before they do something, which I
or
agree,
that they
which I
do a good deed in order to get personal gain from it.
oh, I believe that happens way too much. Which isn't to say that that is necessarily bad because somebody should receive something in return for their hard work. For example, if somebody were to um how should I say, do something that only they could do, I believe that they do deserve to be rewarded, but that doesn't mean that they should be naming that reward that's beyond that their due. And people should also be doing things just because it is the right thing to do. A doctor should heal a person not because that person will give them plenty of money after the fact, but because it is the thing that they should do to help another human being, another soul, of course.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, considering the fact that your champion has been in another world, would you consider naming another champion perhaps in the future that exists in this world, in the Terran world?
Considered it. It is something that is in the back of my mind occasionally during most days. When I do recall past glory days of mine, it is something that I am currently also looking for. There's so many individuals on this world. In fact, it might come as a surprise, but this world's inhabitants and population is a lot larger than the one I came from. Who knows? It might not just be one champion, but a couple more than that. It is something exciting to think about and prospect about. But there is a very strict criteria. I certainly haven't found anyone who fits it just yet, but I am looking, and I do see some potential in certain candidates, that's for certain.
Well, I suppose that's just something your followers and other beings just have to watch over time to see if there really will be if there will who will be the champion that will be named perhaps in the future.
Hmm. This is the one thing not many people can wish for. There's no wishing to get this one, and no cheating.
Something, yeah, something they have to earn, of course.
Yes,
Anyway,
it is
we should
something that
probably
you would
move to
have
the
to
next
earn.
question.
Hmm.
Next question, the seventh question. As a god, do you have a list of people, a type of, sorry, do you have a list of things people should follow when joining your cult? I'm sorry, joining your belief system, such as a testament or rules that they have to follow to worship you as a deity.
Well, when it comes to being a deity, I'm not super strict about most things, but I do have a few commandments that I do actually ask of people to consider. 1. Treat yourself and others kindly. There is no real reason to be unnecessarily cruel to one another. Be careful on how you treat individuals. Respect them and respect yourself, because you are worth it, and so are they. 2. Ensure that you never lose the drive for living, because living is the greatest thing that you can do. There are so many benefits and advantages, rather, to being a living being. There are so many things you can accomplish, and those are the only things that you can do. 3. While living, use that time wisely. Never sit idle for too long, and make sure that you are always, no matter how slow, making some progress toward goals that you wish to accomplish, even if it's just simply as something as making an individual smile every day, including yourself. And 4, make sure that you take care of yourself first, because you can't take care of others if you desire to, if you yourself are a shamble mess, what you used to be. Those are very simple rules, honestly. Oh,
Yes,
and
Def.
don't abuse. No, rule 5. I forgot about rule 5 again.
Oh, yes.
No, no abusing the wishes to try to circumvent these other rules, and
Oh,
ask for help when
definitely,
needed.
yes.
And
There's
never be
probably
afraid
a
or too
loophole that
prideful to
somebody might
ask for
use.
help.
Ah, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that
For the
probably
most
that
part,
has
that is
happened
it.
in yeah. That has definitely been happening to other deities, I'm assuming, wherein they try to circumvent divine intervention and only find a way to make it worse for themselves, as can be seen
Yeah.
dozens of times in the Greek pantheon.
Yes, oh dearly, so very much, yes. Not always that, but also having the wish and desire for basically a divine miracle when you don't need one. Yeah, you'll get a divine miracle, but it will also be a monkey's paw style situation.
Exactly, wherein you try to do something that ends up trying to like put yourself ahead of others, but doing it in like a very, how should I say,
Very, a very
negative
scummy way.
a selfish way,
Yes,
something that is very unbecoming of somebody who wishes to be part of your um belief system.
exactly. Just precisely why I want to emphasize that if you are to be a part of my pantheon, or at the very least, a part of my devotion, you should always make sure to take care of yourselves first. Because, if you yourself are not in the best state you can be, how can you expect to possibly help others?
Exactly. There, and just to be clear to the viewers watching, we are not just talking about physical health. We're also talking about emotional and
Mental
mental
health.
health. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. All types of your health as an individual are valuable, and you should cherish and take care of it. Your body is a temple. Treasure it as such.
Speaking of temples, do
Oh,
you have any temples on this dimension yet?
I
Perhaps a place
do.
of
Oh,
worship?
the only one I have currently is the shrine I reside in. But if I had it crash land on the Earth itself, I'm pretty certain there would be too much collateral damage for it to be rebuilt. So, no,
Uh,
not yet.
Fair enough.
But perhaps that is a project that can happen in the future.
Per Yes, definitely. There is plenty of ways to do things in such a way that they don't have to be in your temple to worship you. Of course, they can do it in
Mhm.
other ways.
We do actually have a sacred rite that happened on my world to help with this. It's a fond memory of mine. But my fellow gods assisted me by spreading my cherry tree seeds. On the shrine, I have a grove, an endless sea of sakura trees. And
Ah,
each tree, when blooming, will never fade away. Like spring, it will remain eternally in bloom. And each blossom represents a wish that somebody has made to me. It's
that
always a nice
sounds
little
beautiful.
it is a lovely keepsake of mine. As to why as well, a lot of my design and my articles of clothing and even my fan are very inspired by flowers and sakura blossoms. But
Hmm.
these trees upon the world are ways for people to commune with me without actually making the. It's a lovely tradition. There used to be a whole festival around it back when I was on my world. It was always lovely to see them set up stalls.
I see. Well, I suppose that is the best way to remember your time as a deity. No, I
Hmm.
mean your time as a deity in the other world, of course. Being able to reminisce in the past and well, see on what's different with this universe.
They have a wonderful festival over in Japan, as I think it's called. They have flower viewing festivals when the sakura trees are in bloom.
Oh yes, I believe it's called Hanami, if I recall.
Mhm.
I could be
Hanami,
wrong
yes.
though. Perhaps the viewers could correct me if it is wrong though. But I do
It's
believe
a
it is
lovely
called
tradition.
Hanami. But yes,
It is the closest thing that we have in this world compared to the festival that I used to have. Very small and very cozy, meant for loved ones to get together and enjoy the blossoms and the coming of spring.
does your current temple have these um cherry blossoms in it that would be
Hmm.
that still grow because for every wish has been granted?
Yes. The trees themselves, once they have bloomed, never actually wilt. They stay perpetually frozen as a trophy and more of a representative of the accomplishment of the wish. The blossoms themselves don't die because it's must be not just a representative of the wish, but the dream behind the wish, the ideals and the reasons why. Plus, it's a nice little keepsake for those of I've helped and assisted.
Each
It's a nice
one
little
being a
tradition.
reminder, huh?
Mm-hmm. My entire grove is filled to the brim with them. I wonder how the trees on my old world are doing. It's been a while, and they used to have tenders all across the world.
Hmm. Perhaps they're perhaps they still see the wish they still see the trees and still believe that perhaps the old stories may be true because as we know sometimes people tend to forget history, tend to forget what
Hmm.
things mean to people, but seeing how we have reminders such as your cherry blossom trees, perhaps they would
Mhm.
be reminded of the past, reminded of the greatness, and reminded of the things that you believe in, and things like as we previously discussed, your champion. Perhaps they would be reminded of his work and how people should be more like him.
Yes, one can hope. One can certainly hope.
One can hope, but we can never be certain, as the only way to know
Hmm.
is to go there, and believe you don't you cannot go there anymore.
No, I've been cut off from that world. Even if I was to manage to relocate it, I highly doubt I could re-enter the dimension or plane. Even, well, it's a bit of a cruel joke, really. Despite being a god of wishes, I am not able to grant my own wishes or desires. I was a god designed for the people, not for myself.
I do believe that is quite ironic, as the term would be used in this world. But
Yes,
yes, that's
indeed.
just something we have to live with, isn't it?
Ah, well, we deal with the hand that fate plays us. Each individual card still has its use, even if it's not always the best.
Exactly. Do what you got. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably move on to the next question.
Yes.
Okay. What are some things that people ask you for as a god of wishes, and why is it feet pics?
What? Huh? Is somebody asking for pictures of my feet?
Considering my knowledge of this world and given the culture of the internet, that is something that has been requested a bunch of what I do know of this world and the people in it.
I'm, well, I'm very shocked for one, but well, I don't know how to really respond to that. What a peculiar desire. Humans are weird.
I
Humans are
yes, but there
weird.
is a biological reason for it, but we'd rather not
Mm.
dabble into that.
Mm. Well, well, the as of lately, the most recent things that people desire is maid zen. How, as they put it, they wish to see me in a maid outfit.
Perhaps that is a how should I say, a
Mm.
personal desire for
Mm.
maids.
Maybe,
There
perhaps,
is a
although
cultural phenomenon wherein people desire maids due to the wanting to have a certain power over someone, but not necessarily in a way that is detrimental to that person, of course. They just want to have the fantasy of such a case.
I mean, it is rather peculiar, though, isn't it? I mean, although I will put it this way. If they desire to see me in a maid uniform, they're going to have to see me as a butler first. I like butlers a bit more.
Oh yes, I have seen your artwork on your Twitter, which we will link in
I,
the comments, of course.
I do want to try it on. It's quite a lovely suit. I like suits. They're very nice. They have a nice certain appeal and aesthetic and make one look very sharp and dignified.
I agree. Of course, used what I can to create my own suit during this year's Valentine's Day, which I'm still very proud of course, because I do agree the outfit is, how should I say, clean or dignified.
I don't know. Perhaps that is what they desire, mostly. It seems that Chad has been interested by the conversation of Maid Zenno. Oh dear. But
Definitely, we
perhaps.
have
We,
seen plenty of, how should I say, fan service in many VTubers who have released butter outfits,
Mm.
mostly made outfits, honestly.
Yes, even one of my associates that I've come to know and learn and call Big Brother has a maid outfit.
I do believe their name is
Mary.
yes, exactly, yes. Uh,
Even he
Merryweather, right?
succumbed. Yes, well, he just goes by Mary, but yes. He's even got a maid uniform as well. I'm like, oh wow, you look rather lovely, but why maid? I understand I do, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate it and love it. It's just a peculiar thing. I think he explained it and said that he did it as a joke, but I do think he looks quite charming in that uniform. He has a
Ex-
large battle axe with that one as well.
the battle. Okay. I'm gonna leave that up to the viewers to discuss what they think from that. But yes, the prospects of a maid outfit seems to be a bit, how should I say, more
Attractive.
popular than people would think.
It
We
is quite
it
odd,
do-
isn't it?
yes, it has transcended cultures. I have seen plenty of, well, Japanese media that portrays plenty of women and men as maids. I do find it rather interesting, and of course there are some that are butlers, of course, but butlers are less common, which I find kind of sad, knowing that
That's precisely why I prefer to get a butler uniform first.
butlers are of course, well, basically the same thing as maids, even though that much of media wants to portray them as being completely different.
They are caretakers of the master. They also cook and clean and a few other things in between, much like how
Exactly.
maids do. Maids themselves are more like apparently depicted as they also do this. They function and serve the same role. It's just apparently it's the only real difference is the uniform, really.
Yes. We have see due to media, we have seen plenty of men wearing maid outfits, women wearing butler outfits. It doesn't seem very gender nowadays. It is just
Which is
based
quite
around the
nice.
person's preferences.
Which I think is quite lovely, honestly, as one who doesn't really have a gender to begin with.
Ah, yes, that is something that plenty of people should probably know more about. That you do are a ungendered being, if I should say so.
Mm,
I don't know what the proper term
yes.
is to be used.
I believe on this world they call it agender. Uh, binary. But yes, I am, well, I guess lots of people prefer that I am female presenting. So I go by she, her pronouns. But,
Ah, I
yeah.
see.
hmm But yes, I am actually not particularly gendered at all. I can take a male or a female form depending on what the individual desires to see me as. But that is something that is taking quite a bit of practice to once again get back into. I am able to shapeshift, as you know, and not only into my bestial form, but my male form, a female form, a child form if needed, that sort of thing. It is a few different methods that I use to make me, well, seem less imposing, because, sometimes being summoned and appearing before an individual, it can be quite overwhelming to be face to face with a god, and is just a god. In fact, my real form looks nothing like this at all.
Oh, are you talking about your bestial form, or do you have another form that we don't know about?
My bestial form even has a larger form, indeed, that is meant to reflect the divinity that I have ascertained. But yes, there is a proper form that I have, besides all of those that I've mentioned. It's just locked away at the moment. Even back in my original world, I didn't use it that much because it wasn't a need to.
I see, I see. So, well, I don't believe there are plenty of how should I say, situations wherein a bestial form would be needed, perhaps. Let's say,
Hmm.
not since you do not participate during war times, but do participate in the aftermath and how to aid people. You don't really get to use your bestial form much, do you?
A great restoration spirit on that regard. As somebody who heals the wounds of the individuals affected from war, I also heal the land. It's not just the land itself speaks, it's just some mortals and individuals and entities have a difficult time hearing it.
I suppose that makes sense. That is probably a weakness that some humans who don't understand the language of the land do end up, well,
Hmm.
yes, they don't
Yes.
hear, they don't hear the cries of some of the lands that occur. But regardless, that's just something that humans have to deal with at a time from time to time.
Yes, we're not going to dwell on that. But yes,
Okay.
oh, King Spirits has a question.
Oh yes, we will answer the questions at the end of the initial 10 questions.
Yes.
Okay. Next off. For the ninth question, have you ever enacted someone's wish to curse someone, or maybe have you cursed somebody, somebody particularly evil, someone who has wronged other people or done nefarious things that has negatively affected others?
Yeah, I have. And it's never pleasant. I refuse to do it again, that's for certain. The outcome was very bad. I've only done it 3 times, and I will never do it again.
Care to share details of those 3 times, if it's of allowed, of course?
First time was, well, like I mentioned before, that great king. It was
Oh
the blade
yes,
he wished for. He wished for a cursed blade, able to strike down any opponent, and those that he did not kill to be mindless followers in his army. The second was somebody wishing to have that king removed, and having his entire lineage cursed beyond all time, first forced to return to animals if they ever so dive deep into their old bloodlines and habits. And the third time, well, that was just a tragedy. I had to undo everything and seal it away. I put a curse upon the land, of which those 2 great curses were sealed upon.
I see. So
I
it was
will.
a type of undo to prevent
Mm,
further destruction caused by those curses.
yes, it was something that I had to take responsibility for, being the cause of it all, even though, by technical standards, it was the people who wielded that power. I was still the one who provided it. So I needed to put a stop to it.
That makes sense. Human, plenty of beings do tend to abuse certain powers to benefit themselves or do in such a way that causes more harm.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have dabbled into this philosophy wherein, how should I say, it is, if I recall correctly, it is from the Taoism belief in the eastern part of the, or eastern part of the Terran dimension, wherein they discussed that they I do not completely agree with what they discussed, which is, if somebody is harming another person, you are not allowed to intervene. The reason behind that is, if you intervene, you would have to do so in a violent manner. And
Yes.
doing violence against a person also using violence only brings more violence.
It perpetuates a cycle that is impossible to break, because oftentimes violent crimes inflicted upon another, if that leads to death and destruction on a mass scale, there are always going to be people who are filled with hatred, regrets, and prospects to avenge those who have been hurt, and thus the cycle will continue for whoever initiated it and those involved in that initial cycle. It's a horrible thing that humans do.
Exactly, but
They're
unfortunately
unfortunately
we can't
quite
change
good
it.
at yes, they're quite good at
Yes,
hurting themselves and each other.
it's, well,
It's
I
sad.
believe that it's just what plenty of beings unfortunately do, but that's just the universe at large. And all we can do as beings is to help one another and try to mitigate what occurs. Try
Yes,
to lessen the damages that it causes upon each other and everything else around us. So considering that fact that curses have been enacted upon, and you have enacted those curses upon you, I believe you no longer enact wish curses that somebody
And no,
has.
yes, I no longer dabble or even consider that to be an option. And in fact, if nowadays I'm quite strict on that, if anybody attempts to ask me to curse somebody or even themselves, well, you can leave my shrine, and I will never answer a call from you again.
That is true. There is some people who tend to, well, like what you said earlier, push it a bit too far.
Yes, I must remind people, despite me being quite, well, easygoing and negotiable, I am still a god at the end of the day. And I will act accordingly within my divine right.
Exactly. That is just something people should remember when dealing with a divine entity such as yourself.
Yes. Although I do prefer not to be that way. That's why I should tell people, don't push it.
Exactly. Um. Well, what we said earlier was the curses. What what do you reckon? Well, of course, the hurting one another is of course a type of curse already,
Hmm?
and
This is a
wishing for
taboo.
something, yeah, exactly, something that people have wished upon each. Okay, one of the wishes that I reckon has been probably wished upon was for example, I wish that this type of person doesn't exist. That is of course a curse, and sadly is probably something many people wish on earth, which is a depressing state to say. But
Yes, it
that
quite
that
is.
that being said, what are some of the opposites of that? Some things, some wishes that you've heard that you didn't really expect people to ask, like something that they did to for another person, like somebody's wish that was actually meant to help someone else.
I had quite a surprise once when I was just starting out as a god. That it ended up becoming a bit more of a regular occurrence. But I remember somebody wished that one of their companions was able to have a child because they had suffered an accident that made them unable to have children. It was a really warm and welcoming story that I was happy to have a hand in. They
Well,
found one off the side of the road and adopted it. It was a really nice time. It's actually one of my prouder moments, I believe, as a deity.
that
I
sounds
helped.
that
I,
sounds
I
remarkably
helped.
sweet, honestly.
I was able to help a family be made, and it was something that I take great pride in.
That is just really that's a really nice story to show the viewers and show the followers about what has happened over the years. Showing, well, they can wish for things to be granted for themselves, but I do believe that that person who wished to have a family is probably something people should strive for, something they'd want. They should want to have.
Right. It was nice. Another occasion was more silly than anything else. Somebody
Oh,
wished that they would be able to eat me so they could win a food eating competition.
wait, sorry. There was a slight
There was a
distortion. Can you say it
there
again?
was a there was an individual who wished that they could eat as much as me to win a food competition.
Oh no.
It was such an
uh,
entertaining and amusing idea. I might have just gone ahead and let that happen.
can you say what occurred during those moments?
Well, they certainly won, but they definitely regretted it a few days later.
Ah,
But
yes,
no harm came to them because I stepped in. But that was funny.
that makes a lot of sense. There is certain wishes that we do believe can be a bit humorous, as we should say.
It was
I
all
do.
in the name of harmless fun.
Of course, of course. There are some people who do wish for rather strange things like what you've said, but I have
Oh yes.
seen I have seen people probably, well, what we said earlier, wished for the feet pics online.
I don't understand that one. That one is still a bit of a bizarre one, in my particular opinion.
That is I agree. There are some people who Well, there are some people who wish it, and others who are rather puzzled by it, rather puzzled by the prospects of feet pictures.
I'm not sure exactly why would that would be so interesting, but I do have feet.
Perhaps some people would wish to see those, but that is a wish to be granted another day, I reckon.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, now going to perhaps the last question of the day, which is, surely over time there have been new gods who would rise up from the ashes of the old. Who are some of those gods that you know personally? Or maybe some gods who you don't know that they are gods yet? Or something of that nature. Do you believe that there are other gods here that you don't know about? Or who you think
Perhaps.
might be gods?
Perhaps. I have actually met a fellow god a little while ago. I've met
Oh,
also a fellow demon. There's a few of them that I've encountered my time here, and it is quite nice to encounter fellow deities. Because I thought I was all alone, considering this world was already inhabited with deities that seem to have had their influence lessened and gone off into hiding. But I was pleasantly surprised to discover otherwise.
would you probably share like some stories or some people that you know about and who you when why you'd say they are gods and goddesses, of course.
Well, it's rather difficult to explain. It was because when I was, as you say, streaming, I was raided by a fellow god.
Ah, yes.
Yes, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with them properly after that. It's something that we'll have to do eventually, though. I certainly will. I
Oh,
do
surely,
agree to that.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps they
But
would like talk to you soon enough.
yes, yes. But it was quite interesting to see that in regards to some of the other fellow VTubers, as it were, that we have seen on this platform. That some of them are indeed deities is quite nice. It doesn't help. It helps me not feel alone.
Oh, yes, definitely. We have seen plenty of uh people, well, how should I say this? We have seen plenty of gods and goddesses rise up from the ashes. Some of my friends I've only recently found out were actually deities such as yourself. It's rather interesting
Ah,
to see the dynamic between the different people and how they appear just as mortals and find out they're gods later on. But I suppose that's just how plenty gods in the pantheon work, is it not?
perhaps. I mean, to be fair, I'm not exactly a god of this world, so perhaps that is because it was so surprising for people to find out I was a deity. My divine power is quite low after arriving here. I wouldn't be surprised if many people mistook me for, at the very least, a yokai, as they call it. I do have a lot of
Yes.
characteristics of one.
Yokai coming from the Japan, right? The
Yes,
beings that are, how should I describe it? I cannot properly describe this since I am not really knowledgeable of them.
I'm pretty certain it was because of my mask. Apparently, a lot of people believed I was a kitsune, as they call it.
Ah, yes, the fox type of deity, if I recall.
Oh, well, it's a fox yokai as a creature. Yes.
Oh, yes, that definitely. Well, anyway, that has been the 10 questions I have for this. Do you have any the viewers? Do you have any questions for Zeno? Something you'd want
Oh,
to
your
ask our
burning
guest?
questions. Your burning questions shall be answered.
I'm looking through the previous questions that were asked before, and let's see what are some questions that people have been asking. Well, perhaps there are plenty of people that are currently wishing for your maid outfit reveal, of course.
Ah, my goodness. It's still going to be quite some time yet. I'd rather try to dress up like a bard first, if I'm being honest.
Oh, a bard, that'd be interesting. A that I'm assuming a
Mm-hmm.
bard from European history.
More so from Dungeons and Dragons, as they put it.
Ah, yes, that one um
It's
tabletop
a
game, if I recall.
Yes, I do find them quite lovely, the tabletop games. I find myself quite fond of dice.
Ah, yes, games of chance and gods being fond of them. That seems rather poetic, if I do believe so.
Mm-hmm. It's one where I also don't need to worry about being a god and just having fun, which is something I haven't had in a very long time.
I believe that's just something that people should strive for, is not? People wanting
Hmm.
to just have fun and just not worry about issues that occur in life.
Yes,
Responsibilities,
indeed.
perhaps. Now, oh,
Yes,
here
yes,
it is.
indeed.
A question by King Spirits. If you
Oh
have
my.
no gender, are you a flat down under? Okay, I see what he means. Um, he's probably questioning if you have
If I'm
any
packing,
genitals. Yes.
King Spirits. Ah, yes, I am. Ah, as you call, a Ken doll. I have none.
Ah. Okay, well that is certainly an answer. Okay, they've heard it. Very well, that is rather interesting as that's rather interesting. Perhaps that is something. Yes, King. Yes, that is exactly what's going on, King. Okay, I do believe there aren't any other questions. Now, how about you? Do you have any questions for me, perhaps? Something that you'd like to hear answered? Or something that you just wanted to tell the viewers, perhaps? Any final words?
Well, as always, as your lovely deity who grants wishes and protects dreams, make sure to always have an ideal, a goal that you wish to strive for, and work hard to achieve it. Trek forward, move forward, and do your very best. And believe in yourself as well as others. Sometimes your greatest inspirations can lead to your greatest ideals and accomplishments. You need only take the first step.